I found his gun under our bed. Just hours after he kissed me goodnight, like everything was normal. Like we were just another couple, a little broken, a little tired, but in love. He even whispered "I love you" before turning off the lamp. I remember the warmth of his palm on my hip, the way he exhaled like he was finally at peace. And then he slept. Or at least, pretended to. I didn't sleep that night. Something about the silence felt off. Like the air itself was warning me. You ever feel that? That crawling stillness that settles into your bones, telling you something's wrong. Even when everything looks okay on the surface? I waited until his breathing changed, slow and steady. That's when I slipped out of bed, heart pounding louder than my footsteps. I told myself I was being paranoid. That I just needed proof that I was overthinking. But when I crouched and reached under the bed, my fingers touched cold metal. I didn't pull it out right away. I froze. It was like touching ice and realizing it's a razor blade. I sat there on the floor, staring at my trembling hand, knowing deep inside that once I pulled that thing out, everything would change. And I was right, because it wasn't just a weapon. It was truth. And truth, it doesn't whisper. It explodes. I should probably start from the beginning, though. You don't know me yet. My name's Isla. 26. Literature student. Wannabe poet. Daughter of a woman who taught me how to survive on broken dreams and strong tea. I've always been quiet. Observant. One of those people who notices the way others hide their sadness. Because I've been hiding mine all my life. My father left when I was 5. No explanations. No apologies. Just one day, he was gone. Left behind a suitcase of his clothes and a note that said "I'm sorry." He wasn't sorry. Men like him never are. So my mother raised me. Alone. She worked 2 jobs, cleaned houses by day, waited tables by night. And still, she never complained. Her smile was always tired, but it was there. That's where I got it from. That habit of smiling when everything hurts. Growing up, I didn't believe in fairy tales. How could I? Love, to me, was an open wound. It bled quietly. And no one cared. I met Rehan on a Sunday. My roommate, Zara, had invited her older brother over to fix our broken kitchen tap. I didn't want to be there. I had a deadline. But the moment he walked in, I forgot what I was even working on. He wasn't traditionally handsome. Not in the movie star way. But there was something unfinished about him. Like a character who'd been through too much but hadn't found the right ending yet. He was tall, tanned, a little rough around the edges. Tattoos creeping up his forearms, a faded scar near his eyebrow. Eyes that didn't quite meet yours, not out of shyness, but restraint. Like he was afraid if he looked too deep, he'd be seen. He didn't smile much. But when he did, it felt earned. Zara warned me, of course. Just ignore him, she said. He's not your type anyway. I didn't even know what my type was. But something in me saw something in him. And for the first time in a long time, I wanted to be seen too. He didn't flirt. Didn't try to charm me. He just worked. Fixed the tap. Said thanks. Left. But the way he looked at me when I offered him tea. It wasn't flirty. It was cautious. Appreciative. Like no one had offered him warmth in a long, long time. That night, I asked Zara about him. She hesitated. Then said, he's been through stuff. Jail. Fights. Bad choices. But he's trying now. Trying. That word echoed in my head like a prayer. Because aren't we all? The next time I saw him was 3 weeks later. This time, he'd brought food. Zara had twisted her ankle and couldn't cook, and he said he didn't trust takeout. I watched him quietly as he moved in the kitchen. He didn't say much. But he asked me one question that caught me off guard. "You always wear long sleeves?" I looked down at my arms. Nodded. "Comfort," I lied. He didn't push. I think that's what drew me in. He didn't try to fix me. He just made space beside his silence for mine. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. Suddenly, Rayhan was always around. Sometimes with Zara. Sometimes just for tea. Sometimes to check if the heater was working. But somehow, always, with me. He started showing up at the bookstore I worked at. Sometimes he'd just browse, other times he'd sit at the cafe and pretend to read while I shelved books. One rainy evening, he waited 2 hours just to walk me home. I asked him why. He shrugged. "Didn't want you walking in the dark alone." And that was it. No lines. No pressure. Just protection. Just presence. I fell in love slowly. And all at once. It wasn't his looks. Or his voice. It was the way he listened. Like I mattered. Like my pain didn't make me hard to love. And I loved him in all the ways I didn't know how to love myself. He told me about prison one night. Barely. 5 years. Something I did. Something I didn't stop. That's all he said. I asked no more. He told no more. I accepted that. Because we were both broken. And sometimes, broken people don't need explanations. Just safe places to fall. He became mine. We moved in together after a year. It was sudden. Messy. Intense. But it felt right. For a while, I was happy. Really, truly happy. He'd leave little notes in my books. Cook dinner when I was exhausted. Hold me when I had nightmares. Tell me I was safe. And I believed him. But then, things changed. The phone call started. Late at night. He'd step outside to answer. Come back looking distracted. He stopped bringing up the future. Avoided my questions. Smiled less. One day, I saw blood on his shirt. He said he cut himself on a car engine. I wanted to believe him. But something in my chest started screaming louder every day. Something's wrong, something's very wrong. And then, the gun. That night, when I touched it. My whole body froze. I pulled it out slowly. It was real. Heavy. Loaded. He had lied. And not just about his past. But about who he was right now. I stared at him while he slept. Peaceful. Breathing like nothing mattered. But I couldn't breathe. Because love is supposed to feel like safety. And suddenly, mine felt like a coffin. I didn't leave that night. I just stayed awake. Sat in the kitchen. Cried quietly. And prayed for a version of him that didn't exist. I wish that was the end of the story. But it was only the beginning. Because what I didn't know was that the gun wasn't just for protection. It was tied to something far more dangerous. Something that would burn everything I believed in. Including him. They say your past doesn't define you. But that's not true. Not for girls like me. I was raised in a house built on silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that screams behind closed doors. The kind where laughter disappears and footsteps mean fear. My mother did her best. She always did. She made sure I had food. Books. Safety. But happiness? That wasn't in our budget. I was 5 when my father left. He didn't yell. He didn't slam doors. He just packed his bag and disappeared. Left behind a note. I'm sorry, Sophia. I can't do this anymore. Not even a line for me. Not one word. Just the silence of abandonment. I didn't cry that night. Not because I wasn't hurt. but because I had already learned something important. Crying changes nothing. My mother, Sophia, never spoke ill of him. She just removed his photos, boxed up his shirts, and started working longer hours. Cleaning houses during the day. Waiting tables at night. Coming home with cracked hands and a fake smile. She was beautiful in a tired kind of way. Dark eyes that held too many secrets. A voice that rarely rose above a whisper. And when she did speak, her words were always for my protection. Keep your head down, Isla. Good girls don't ask too many questions. Silence is safer than truth. I followed those rules like commandments. Because when you're a child and the world feels too big, you cling to whatever makes your mother breathe easier. School was never my escape, but books were. I'd lose myself in pages. In stories where girls like me got saved. Where pain had a purpose and love had redemption. But real life wasn't like that. In real life, you learn to hide your bruises beneath long sleeves, even if they're not physical. In real life, the villains don't wear capes. They wear wedding rings and cologne. And in real life, no one comes to rescue the quiet girl in the corner. So I stopped waiting to be saved. By the time I turned 16, I had mastered the art of invisibility. I wasn't popular. I wasn't rebellious. I was just there, a shadow with straight A's and quiet eyes. Teachers loved me because I never caused trouble. Boys ignored me because I didn't flirt. Girls respected me because I kept secrets. But inside, I was screaming. There was one moment, a memory that never left me. I was in the school library, sitting between two shelves, reading a poetry book. The line said, "She was drowning, but nobody saw, because she smiled while sinking." That was me. Smiling while I drowned. When I was 17, my mother collapsed. Kidney failure. Stress. Malnutrition. The doctor said she had ignored her own health for too long. That she needed rest. But rest wasn't something we could afford. I started working at a bookstore to help. Part-time. Late hours. Reading between shelves, shelving between sobs. Life was survival. Nothing more. Then came college. I got a partial scholarship, literature major. My mother cried when I got accepted. "I wanted a better life for you," she said, holding my hands. "And you're fighting for it." I didn't tell her the truth. That I wasn't fighting. I was just running. Running from the emptiness that had followed me since I was 5. Running from the kind of silence that makes you forget how to breathe. And that's when Rehan entered my life. The first time I saw him, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Curiosity. He didn't try to charm me. Didn't flash a smile. He just existed, quietly, like me. But with an edge I didn't understand. I wanted to know more. But more than that. I wanted him to see me. And he did. We never rushed. He wasn't a man of too many words. And I wasn't a woman who trusted easily. But we understood each other. He didn't ask about my past. I didn't ask about his. Sometimes we sat for hours without speaking. Just silence. But it wasn't the kind I feared. It was the kind that healed. I began to believe that maybe, just maybe, love didn't have to hurt. One night, I told him about my father. "I used to wait by the door every night," I whispered. Convinced he'd come back. Rehan didn't interrupt. And then one day, I continued, I realized he wasn't just gone. He never wanted to stay. There was a long pause. Then he said, "My dad used to beat my mom in the garage. I once tried to stop him. I was 13. He broke my nose." I turned to look at him. That scar on his eyebrow, it made sense now. "I ran away that night," he added. "Slept on the street. Cops picked me up. That was my first arrest." He smiled bitterly. "But hey, I survived." I didn't say anything. I just reached out and held his hand. For the first time in my life. Silence felt safe. We were both broken. But for a while, we made each other whole. He'd watch me write poetry and tell me I had magic in my veins. I'd watch him fix engines and tell him he was building more than machines, he was rebuilding his life. It felt real. It felt right. But deep down, a voice in me whispered, nothing this beautiful lasts forever. And it was right. Because soon after, the lies began. It started with little things. Things most people wouldn't even notice. A missed call. A distracted gaze. A bruise he wouldn't explain. A smile that didn't reach his eyes. But I noticed. Because I knew the weight of pretending. I'd done it all my life. The first time it felt wrong was the night he came home late, past midnight. I was waiting in the kitchen, tea long cold. He looked surprised to see me awake. "You should be sleeping," he said. I was worried. He kissed my forehead and said, "I got caught up fixing a customer's car." But there was grease on his collar, not his hands. And Rehan, he always cleaned his hands before coming home. He was meticulous about it. I didn't say anything. But I started paying attention. The second time, I found his phone hidden under a cushion. Face down. On silent. I never touched his phone before. I believed in privacy. But that night, my fingers acted before my conscience did. I unlocked it, his passcode was still the same, 0512. My birthday. What I saw didn't make sense at first. There were no texts. No call logs. No photos. Everything was wiped. Except one folder in his Files app. Locked. Named B. I didn't know what it meant. Didn't try to guess. I locked the phone again and placed it back exactly how I found it. But my heart didn't return to its place that night. I started watching him. Not out of obsession. But out of survival. Because something in me, the same instinct that told me when my father wasn't coming back, was whispering again. And it was telling me this. He's not who you think he is. One Friday evening, he told me he had a late job. A car delivery outside the city. But he forgot one detail. He left his toolbox at home. It was always with him, heavy, black, and full of tools marked with tiny red stickers. His name written on the inside flap. I stared at it sitting by the front door after he left. And then I made a decision I thought I'd never make. I followed him. I borrowed Zara's scooter. Waited 10 minutes. Then rode after him, staying 2 cars behind. He didn't go to the auto shop. Didn't take the highway either. He drove through alleyways, past the old textile mills. Into an industrial zone that was supposed to be abandoned. And then he stopped. Outside a small gym with the shutters half pulled down. I parked far enough not to be seen. Watched him walk inside, looking over his shoulder like he knew he was being watched. He disappeared into the building. I waited. 10 minutes. Then 15. Then 20. Curiosity ate me alive. I moved closer. There was a side door. Slightly open. I pushed it gently and slipped inside. What I saw shattered everything. It was a basement. Dim lights. 2 men counting cash. Another cleaning a handgun. And in the middle of it all, Rehan. Laughing. Talking to a man with a scar across his cheek. Exchanging something. A brown envelope. I couldn't hear much. But I caught a name. Farouk. My blood froze. I knew that name. Everyone in my city did. I don't know how I got home that night. Don't remember driving. Don't remember undressing. Just remember curling into a ball on the floor, shaking like I was made of glass. I didn't confront him. Not that night. Not the next day. I pretended everything was normal. Cooked. Cleaned. Smiled. But I was watching. Every move. Every word. Every lie. He was living a double life. And I was living in denial. 1 week later, I opened my laptop. I messaged my old friend Asher, a legal intern I once tutored in university. Asher, I typed, can you find me someone's criminal file? Within a day, he sent me a PDF. Rayhan Khan. Age 29. Arrested at 21. Charged with manslaughter. Victim, Javed Anwar. Crime scene, garage dispute. Verdict, 5 years in prison. Served, 5 years. Released, early, on grounds of good behavior. I read it again. And again. And again. Manslaughter. Not an accident. Not a misunderstanding. He killed someone. And he never told me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt numb. Like the girl I used to be, the one who believed she could trust again, had died quietly in that moment. I stared at the wall for hours. And when he came home that night, he kissed me on the cheek. Told me he brought biryani. Laughed when I didn't respond. And I smiled. Because I had learned from the best. Smile while sinking. The night I discovered everything, the gun, the lies, the court file, the truth about Rayhan. I didn't leave immediately. No, leaving someone you love isn't as simple as walking out a door. Especially when part of you still believes they're not the monster the world claims they are. That part of me was stubborn. But not stupid. I didn't say a word. Not the next morning, not the day after. I just started quietly, preparing. I called my university advisor and asked for a deferment. I lied and said I had family issues. I didn't tell my mother anything. She'd ask questions I wasn't ready to answer. Questions like, did he ever hurt you? No, he didn't. Not physically. But betrayal is its own form of violence. Zara was out of town for a wedding. That made it easier. I packed what I needed, the essentials. Laptop. Clothes. My poetry journal. Left the framed photo of us on the wall. I wanted him to see it when he came home. Wanted it to hurt the way I was hurting. I wrote one note. Some truths weigh more than love. You never gave me a choice, Rayhan. So I made one for myself. And I left. I didn't go far. Just the next city. Small, coastal, quiet, the kind of place where no one asks your story unless you offer it. I rented a tiny studio near the sea. No furniture except a mattress and a folding chair. No comfort except the sound of waves through the cracked window. For the first few weeks, I did nothing. I barely ate. Barely spoke. Some days, I didn't shower. Some nights, I cried so hard my chest hurt like it was caving in. People romanticize heartbreak. They don't tell you about the rage. The self-loathing. The way you start questioning your sanity. How could I not see it? How did I sleep beside a man who lied with such ease? Did he ever even love me? I asked those questions on repeat, like they were some prayer I hoped would bring clarity. But clarity doesn't come easy to a broken heart. The bookstore I used to work at had another branch in this town. I called the manager and asked if they had openings. They did. I took the job. Started small. Morning shifts. Shelving books. Avoiding eye contact. But books were familiar. Safe. And slowly, I started breathing again. Months passed. I started therapy, something I never thought I'd afford. But the local community center had a counselor who agreed to see me weekly, no charge. Her name was Mrs. Kamar. 50-something, warm eyes, soft voice. She never judged me. I think you loved him, she said one day, because he reminded you of yourself. How? Wounded. Misunderstood. Always waiting to be seen. I cried that day. Not because she was right, but because it was the first time someone had put words to the ache inside me. I stayed gone for almost a year. Didn't visit home. Didn't contact Zara. Blocked Rayhan from everywhere. I heard he came to the university once, asking about me. That he waited outside the bookstore for hours. That he asked Zara if I was okay. But I didn't respond because if I had seen him, I might have collapsed in his arms. And I couldn't survive being lied to twice. Then something happened. Something that changed everything again. A brown envelope arrived at the bookstore. No return address. No stamp. Just my name, handwritten. Inside. A USB drive. A photo of Rayhan, in handcuffs, standing outside a courtroom. A press clipping from 6 years ago. A copy of a court transcript. My hand shook as I plugged in the USB. Video footage played. It was grainy, but clear enough to see Rayhan standing in front of a judge. The case being reviewed, the state versus Rayhan Khan. The witness testifying, Bilal Khan. Rayhan's younger brother. He was crying. Hands trembling. Voice breaking. I was the one who hit Javed. Not Rayhan. He just got there first. Took the fall. Told me to run. I froze. What? Rayhan didn't kill that man? He covered for his brother? The next part of the video was Rayhan's statement. He was 16. He panicked. I couldn't let him go to jail. So I took the blame. I didn't think it would matter. Nothing mattered, until her. I felt the room spin. Until her. Was he talking about me? The court never reopened the case. But the confession was enough to cause public doubt. Enough for a journalist to dig into the corruption in the original trial. Enough for someone to send me that video. I sat there for hours, watching it on loop. Rayhan had gone to jail for a crime he didn't commit. Protected his brother. Served 5 years. And he never once told me. Because he didn't want me to see him as a killer. Didn't want me to carry that weight. He carried it alone. I wanted to scream. Cry. Run to him. But I didn't know where he was. No address. No number. He had vanished, just like I had. We were two people. Haunted by silence again. The morning I decided to go back. I woke up gasping from a dream where I was drowning in a courtroom. Surrounded by strangers whispering liar. And Rayhan standing far away. Bleeding from the mouth. But saying nothing. I woke up sweating. Not from fear. But guilt. The kind of guilt that buries itself deep in your bones. That doesn't scream, but whispers. You abandoned him. I had tried so hard to convince myself I did the right thing by leaving. That he betrayed me. That he wasn't who I thought he was. But the truth had its own voice now. And I couldn't silence it anymore. I contacted Zara first. She didn't yell. Didn't scold me. Just whispered. Isla, he's not the same. He never stopped looking for you. I asked where he was. She didn't know exactly. Said he was involved in something now, something legal. That he had people helping him fight back. Apparently, after his brother's confession, a lawyer picked up his case pro bono. Young, hungry for justice. And willing to reopen an old case if someone, anyone, would testify in his favor. I knew then what I had to do. I returned to the city for the first time in 11 months. The streets felt unfamiliar. Like I was walking through a dream version of my life. Zara hugged me at the station. Tighter than I deserved. You okay? She asked. I don't know, I whispered. But I'm ready. The courtroom was cold. Not just in temperature, but in energy. Rayhan sat 3 rows ahead. Hair longer. Eyes duller. Suit too big for his frame. He didn't see me. Not until I stood up when my name was called. The moment he did, his entire body froze. Our eyes locked. And in that single second, I saw everything I had missed. Not anger. Not blame. Just relief. Like he'd been holding his breath for 11 months. And finally exhaled. I testified. I told them what I knew. What I saw. What I believed. I confirmed the legitimacy of the USB. The court transcript. The abuse Rayhan and Bilal had suffered growing up. I told them how Rayhan never used his pain as an excuse. How he tried to build a life despite everything. How he carried the guilt of a crime he never committed. Because to him, love meant protection. Even if it cost him everything. The room was silent when I finished. The judge didn't speak. The lawyer just nodded. And Rayhan? He looked at me with wet eyes and whispered. Thank you. That's all. Not I miss you. Not I love you. Just thank you. It was enough that night. The media got hold of the story. Wrongfully convicted man may be cleared after brother's confession. He took the fall to protect family, and lost years of his life. A woman's testimony might change everything. Suddenly, people cared. Not because they understood. But because the story was tragic enough to entertain. I didn't care about the attention. I just wanted justice. The final hearing was held a month later. The court couldn't erase the past. But they could clear his name. And they did. Manslaughter charge, expunged. Verdict, wrongful conviction. Sentence, voided. He walked out of that building a free man. Legally. Morally. Emotionally? That was another story. He didn't come to see me after. Didn't message. Didn't call. I thought maybe he was done with me. Maybe I had hurt him too deeply. But then, one rainy afternoon, a letter arrived. Isla. I don't know how to say this, so I'll keep it short. You saved me. When no one else believed in me, not even myself, you stood up. You told the truth. You gave me my name back. But some scars don't fade. And some wounds you don't get to heal beside the person who caused them. I loved you. Still do. Always will. But I need time. To breathe. To learn who I am without the guilt. Without the prison bars in my mind. If you ever want to find me, I'll be at the workshop on Mill Street. Fixing cars. Fixing hearts. Yours, if you still want me. I read that letter 100 times. Folded it. Slept with it under my pillow. Didn't respond. Not yet. Because love, real love, isn't always about rushing back. Sometimes it's about arriving whole. A month passed after I got Rayhan's letter. Then 2. Then 3. I didn't go to the workshop. Not because I didn't want to. But because I needed to be sure I wasn't walking into another version of my old self. The girl who waited by the door. The girl who smiled while drowning. The girl who mistook silence for safety. That girl deserved better. So I stayed. And healed. I moved back into the city. Not into our old apartment. That place was too haunted with memories. Instead, I rented a tiny space above a florist shop. Smelled like lavender in the mornings and cinnamon in the rain. Peaceful. Warm. Mine. I started writing again. Real writing, not just in the margins of notebooks or forgotten poems. Essays. Articles. Stories. On grief. On second chances. On the type of love that doesn't promise forever, but shows up when it matters most. People read them. People related. And for the first time, my pain didn't feel wasted. It felt used. One evening, I walked to the sea. The same sea I once stood beside after disappearing from Rayhan's life. This time, I didn't cry. I whispered a prayer instead. Not for him. Not for us. But for me. For the girl who found the courage to leave. The one who had the heart to return. And the soul to forgive. A few weeks later, I found myself standing outside a garage on Mill Street. Not planned. Not even dressed for it. I had just walked. My feet led me there. The same black and white sign. Ours workshop. Simple. Faded. Quiet. I stood there for a long time. Wondering if he still meant it. Wondering if I was still wanted. Then I raised my hand. And knocked. There was silence. Then footsteps. Then the door creaked open. He stood there. Grease on his hands, hair messy, t-shirt stained with paint. But those eyes. Still the same. Still tired. Still haunted. Still home. Isla. His voice cracked like dry wood. I smiled. Fixing engines? I asked, trying not to cry. He chuckled softly. Mostly just breaking them. We stood there for a beat. No confessions. No apologies. Just breath. And unspoken forgiveness. I read your articles, he said. All of them. I wrote them for you, I replied. He looked down. Why'd you come? I took a breath. Because I realized, silence isn't what broke us. It's what saved us. He didn't ask for forever. I didn't promise it. We just walked back into the workshop together. Side by side. No labels. No pressure. Just presence. And maybe that's what real love is. Not fireworks. Not dramatic declarations. But someone leaving the door open. And you having the courage to knock.